And we're back. And we're back. We have Mayshawn on the line. Do we have Mayshawn?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Sorry about having you wait so long, but Kevin Adele got to pay for all of this, so he had to make sure we got a lot of commercials in here, and they're good paying companies, so we got to make sure they get that proper airtime. What's your comment?
I understand. I want to tell Kevin happy birthday. And you touched on so many points. I've been through all of that with my children. But I wanted to say to you first, if there is, or can we create a Black Parent Network group? Because that is very hard to find around these issues of mental illness. And
yes.
Usually once you have mental illness, a lot of things come under that umbrella when it comes to children.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know any network, because it can start from your platform, because we need one, especially now more so than ever before.
We do. Tell us about what you went through and your children and what you've done to help them.
Well, I'm gonna start with my oldest daughter, who is now 30, and when she was 14, she was hanging out at night, overnight, which you don't do with me, and most parents, at the time I was a Sunday school teacher, and I had to say that because I was a prayer warrior, and I wanted everything together, perfect, and do everything for the children. And they had a pretty decent lifestyle, so they wasn't, wanting
right.
for much. And she hung out another night, and I whipped her behind with a belt. And what she did the next day, you know what she did? She scratched herself and scratched her face, which I found out that's called self-mutilation. But I found out through white people that that's what they go through. But when I went through the Black people, nobody know nothing about it. So I took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, she abused herself. And at that age, that's common. And to me, that's not common. Especially when you are in the church. That's
right.
that sounds like some old demonic crazy stuff. It's just so for you to start scratching yourself and abusing yourself. So that is mental illness. But I wanted to say also, I called around at the time to try to get her help, and I couldn't get any. She had insurance, and when I called the insurance company, they didn't cover it at the time. So I said, that's something that needs to be worked on, because there's no services for children. But if they had services, it didn't help her. To me, they didn't have really anything effective or targeted for that age.
How old was she?
So
how old was she? How old was she?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
How old was she?
14.
14, okay.
She was 14. Now, from that, I got an ACS case because she went to school. And as a matter of fact, even prior to that, I had reached out to the school to find out what was going on with her. They had a caseworker there, but the caseworker, he didn't seem like he was wrapped too tight in his head either. I'm telling you. So I called the principal, and I said, share certain things with the principal, so maybe I could get some help. Anyway, I got an ACS case from that. When she went to school, they asked her what happened. And then she said, she was the girl with the scratch face. So now, one thing leads to another. She ended up going to her father, but I had younger children in the home. And that caused the ACS case. So from that experience, I became a family advocate and a parent advocate. And I saw more children like that. But I never really got the support or help.
Yeah.
So either people was calling me from Georgia because I started a group at the National Action Network, and ACS gets involved, but there's no help. They penalize the parent.
Wait a minute. Can you tell us where? Wait a minute. Where are you? What state are you from?
I'm in New York.
And what is the ACF? Explain it to the listeners that are not in New York.
Okay, listeners, Agency for Child Services, CPS, is National Child Protective Services. Those are, we call them kidnappers. They come into your home and remove children.
So they came in on a basis of obviously what they believed was a neglect because she self-mutilated herself and you didn't do anything about it?
She self-mutilated herself, but wasn't doing something about it.
Okay.
And remember, I took her to the doctor.
Right.
And I also contacted because I wanted her to get mental health, and they said the insurance doesn't pay for it, and there was no service available. So when you spoke about service available, that rung a bell to me.
Right.
Because now this is going close to 20 years ago, and I thought things would have changed. But it seems like it hasn't much. And matter of fact, the cases are higher. Well, in New York, it's 92%, 98% Black children.
Let me say this to you. Statistically, 1 in 7 individuals worldwide suffer from some form of mental disorder in their lifetime. 1 in 7.
But I noticed with white children or white teens, the cases are handled differently. I mean, it's not so much of a bombard of child protective services coming in, it's a different thing. But we're finding out, even with the mental illness, the only way you get help is unless they're able to make money.
That's right.
So there's a senator called Nancy Schumer. She's dead now, but she used to advocate for that. But she said the system only is in it to make money, which is true. Because I found out, like remember I told you, one thing leads to another. I became an advocate, working with families, mothers in the court system. There's still, to this day, no help.
It's not.
Either the child gets worse, and I have another child who had an issue too. And I called, I didn't want to do this, but I did call. There's a 1-800 number you could call for mental services. But when I called them out, right, she wouldn't be around. So if she wasn't around, she couldn't get help. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I believe why, I'm going to tell you something. I heard you say that it's not always traumatic, but my question is, what triggers it?
Right.
I always ask my children, did anybody touch you? What type of experience did you have? Because now I'm finding out years later, one of my son's girlfriends says to me that one of my daughters had told them I was around somebody who wasn't right. So now the question is, who is the person that wasn't right? Because Vonda, I'm going to deal with that person. You want to be accountable. Because sometimes children, when they go out in the street, they meet people. You don't know who they're talking with, socializing with. And sometimes the older adults who don't want to hear about mental illness, they're the ones who are part of the problem also.
Right.
When you really investigate, ask questions and ask the children, because now, if you listen to the stories, like I have it on my Facebook, so many adults are coming out saying how they were abused.
Right.
How they were molested, how they were touched, how all types of stuff can happen to them.
And so those can be the triggering effects. However, one of the things that we do see is adolescence. It is the bombardment on the body of all of these different hormones. And the thing about it is that the way that the body handles these onset of different hormones and there's mental illness deals with the brain. It's like you don't understand that there's a bad or a faulty cell in a battery until you put too much power to it. But if you keep it on coast or low, you will never know. It's when the body is then it starts to produce all of these estrogen for the ladies, testosterone. It's like an overflow. And then it's too much on the brain. That's why you see it in adolescence and early adulthood. And it's because that's when the hormonal changes is the greatest.
Is out here, being that it's more chemical.
It is.
I don't see where, like I said, you're having this conversation because I've been thinking about, well, who can you talk to or what can you do? Who do you go to?
Exactly.
There's no help.
There's none.
Especially with the medicine part, that's kind of tricky too, because the side effects for some of these medicine, Vondas, is no joke. And I'm thinking like about the child, like how the medicine, whatever they have out now, like they have children on the different medications that are being sued from the side effects that children are taking.
Right.
Like, what is it called? Riddle something?
Right. And then the drooling of the mouth. Nobody, children,
right.
You know what, children, being around children, they're too, they'll talk about you, the bullying, etc. So children don't take it and they suffer in silence and they self-medicate. And that's the problem. We'll be back. Thank you so much for your comment.